Welcome to partialarc.com. Don't do that.
In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. And a lot of weird shit. Roll to seize!
Welcome to Roll to Seize. This is episode 58. I'm your host, Jay Jones, joined by my co-host and Warhammer enthusiast, Andrew Dickinger.
Is that me? Am I a person?
You are, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I am a person.
I mean, I ask you that every day just to confirm.
Yes, I eat food and go BM like humans.
Are you one of the weird crystal mimic things that we found in one of these hallways?
Of course not. My name is Human.
You know what? You're probably just Andrew.
Yes, Andrew. That is my name.
Yeah. It was weird. I mean, you're Andrew, but this one time I walked down a hallway and I ended up for hours conversing what I thought was you, but it ended up being just one of these crystal mimics just walking down in the crystal stacks. It was really odd, but good conversation though. That's not to say that
it was a good conversation. Yes. Wait, what?
You mean what I was relating to you about?
Yes. Of course.
I feel like I'm missing something here. It's probably fine. Not too many crazy things have happened lately. Out in the Warhammer 40k universe. I mean, the Chaos book dropped finally.
Yeah, there apparently is going to be an emergency change coming out when the FAQ finally drops.
The Lord Discordant will only be 9 health, and he'll hide from everyone. Just kidding.
No. But apparently the original cost, well, not the original cost, the Obliterator cost in the boxed game that I believe it's around 110 points per mile is actually the correct cost.
This is what we're hearing.
This is what we're hearing.
Now, in the space that we are here in the Black Library and in the subsection now known as the Crystal Stacks, time, as we've talked about before, is still weird here.
Wibbly wobbly.
So right now, the FAQ could be out. And we're sorry that we're not going to talk about it because it's not out right now. Or maybe it's still not out. And we're all going to wait until they're going to do it on the very last day, that Tuesday.
Of April?
It still counts.
It still came out in April.
They did that in September, right? They waited for it was like the very last day. I think it was a Monday, and they released it.
I think they did it for the original chapter approved as well as it came out the last weekend.
Yeah. It's, Just say it's going to be the last week,
us now.
and then we'll just give it to us now.
Now.
So we're not going to theorize about what's in the FAQ. We also did that on a bonus episode on the Patreon.
We
did.
You're
going to hear some of that.
There could be some cool stuff.
And actually, from what we're hearing, and maybe what you've already read right now, because again of time and its wibbly wobbliness, we might have been right on a few of those things.
That would be a revelation.
It'd be really nice. Man, it'd be nice. But we're not living in that world right now. In this world, Doom still works on everything and not just Asuryani.
And
flyers are just as annoying as they were before. And that's
3++ save knights.
And again, they might still be that way, but we're hoping that they're not. Anyways, we should talk about our favorite topic, Andrew, which is our Seizes of the Month. It's when every month Andrew and I talk about a game of Warhammer 40k we played at a recent tournament and how well we did in that game.
Yes, that is it.
Usually it's a terrible mistake that we made. So,
yes, that.
Yes, which means I pass it to you, sir, to share your terrible mistake.
But why?
Because? I don't know.
I'm in, all right.
I guess. You accepted really quickly. Are you a mirror person?
No.
Okay, go.
I do lots of human activities.
It's not really nailing the human stuff when you say things like that. Anyways, off to you, sir.
So I fortunately and unfortunately in the last
tournament. Oh my god, double fortunatelys?
Double fortunatelys. Duo fortunate.
Oh my god. The prophecy is true.
Had to play my I know the name of the army, Death Watch.
Shows how competent you are when you can remember the name of the faction.
Yeah, I had to play my Death Watch, and I say fortunately and unfortunately because I like Death Watch, I like them a lot, but I like them more as my for fun army as opposed to my competitive army.
And I guess this means you've been having a lot of fun. because you haven't been able to play that net new army you want to check out.
Yeah, I really want to play my GSC, but it's a very big project, and I'm converting as we've said in the previous episode, I'm converting the entire army, and it's many models, and it takes time, but looks like I will have it ready for the next tournament.
Woohoo! And when he says GSC, he means gene stomping...
Cultistness? Yes.
I was going to say cannibals.
I guess, yeah, mine.
Gene stomping cannibals?
Yes, that's a weird word because that's that's been their thing for a while. Is they're called cannibals, but cannibals means you eat your own kind. They're carnivores. They eat everybody else.
Fair.
They're not actually cannibals.
Just
they're
like
carnivores.
a cannibal would.
What? What cannibals do you know?
And when we're saying this, some people might be confused. Like, what? They've been referring to Genestealer Cult as cannibals? We mean Andrew's special army.
Yes,
which
my
is
Kroot.
Your special Kroot, which you're right. People, they're referred to in the book as cannibals?
Yeah, well, their rule has always been like they're eaters of the dead mantra. Their thing that they do with their Nimun gland, or I can't remember what it's called, but it's always referred to as cannibalism in the fluff. But like that's not what it is.
But they don't eat each other.
They don't eat each other.
Because what are they going to gain from that?
No, nothing.
I am now the super Kroot.
They just like turn back into Kroot birds is what they do.
Oh, that's kind of cute.
Like dodo looking thing.
Just now I just imagine like a little toucan Sam just like, I'll die.
It exists. That's a real thing.
Follow my nose into battle.
That's like almost like a missing link for them. It's a branch of a distant ancestor like apes are for us.
Basically a bunch of dummies who are like, what would you taste like? Oh no, I'm a bird now.
But yeah, I love Kroot. They're one of my favorite races in 40k, and I'm converting because the rules fit so well. The GSC into an entire Kroot army, and it is using actually, it's doing so. There's always a bit of contention with conversions. I'm happy that Games Workshop is far more accepting these days.
Oh yeah, they even put them in their codexes, which is amazing.
They do, and they have them on their website and their community pages. They even have them in like a small little gallery next to the purchasable models on their store. So like
that's really cool.
They're far more accepting of it because they understand that people like to make them their own. Well, for me, I am of the side of, stand-in armies are cool and all, but there are, in the tournament space, a stand-in army doesn't really work because there's just too much confusion for your opponent, no matter how close these things are to the size.
And no matter what you say at the top of a game, because like in the moments of like strategy and planning things, like you need to be able to see something and recognize it as that thing, or it's going to throw you off.
Yeah, when you have to give someone a pamphlet of what things stand for, then it just doesn't stand in the competitive space.
Yeah, it's like, now I know this game is hard enough already to remember all of the different books and all of the different Vigilus Ablaze defiances that are out there, as well as all the FAQs. Here's a spreadsheet of what my army actually is.
Yeah, so I am using a lot of the cult models as a base, and my Patriarch is actually being modeled on the stand for the Patriarch. So he will be standing on the little pipe thing that's the base for the Patriarch, but I'm using actually a Warhammer Age of Sigmar Crypt Flare as the base for the body, which is almost the exact same size as a Patriarch. So, and I'm using the claws of a Patriarch as like Predator style claws on my guy. So he actually has Patriarch claws. Like it's all like relative. So.
It's legit. It's too legit.
To quit?
I didn't say that. Only a mirror person would say that.
What?
It's the mirror test. You failed.
But yeah, so I am converting my entire army to be Kroot based, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I finally have like my solid locked in first list that I'm going to try. I'm using a brigade and a vanguard detachment, all bladed cog.
Ooh.
So I am actually I've done a whole roundabout.
Yeah, you've gone all the way around the block on Genestealer Cult.
Originally, I had at least one detachment of Four-Armed Emperor just to get the Vect stratagem, but the more I'm considering it, the more I don't really need it, and I know that I'll end up gaming myself if I have that.
I mean, from a person who has played a few games with the Blackheart detachments included in a couple things,
Vect,
with Vect, it's a mind game within your own mind. It's like, is now the time that I use it? And even more stressful for Genestealer Cult because you can only pop it off once.
Yeah,
so it's like, do I use it now? Is it gonna have a thing later?
Later. Now it's funny because I was considering holding it just to have against Drukhari, just to wait to vect basically. But in the end, like I was like, I don't really need it. Like, it's more just like I'd rather, and it's expensive. It's 3 CP. So
yeah,
I'd rather just have the extra CP, especially since I'm spending so much at the start of the game with the list I built.
What are you spending all that on?
Lots of stuff. I mean, I have a potential 5 warlord traits.
We've joked about this, that your chain of command in this army is just completely out of whack.
I'm actually using...
I'm the warlord. No, I'm the warlord. Go over there. No, listen to me.
I have 8 individual characters, so no repeats. I have 8 individual characters. I have all but one of the HQs that I'm using.
Jeez.
So, yeah, I mean, I'll be using both. In most circumstances, I'll be using both Vigilist detachments. I'll be using the Deliverance Brood Surge and the Anointed Throng. Which
Ooh, that Throng.
Throng is for the Aberrants, because I...
Throng to dong dong dong, as they say.
No one
yeah,
says
that's
that.
right. Brought it back from the 90s. Or was it the 2000s? Look, it was thousands of years ago. I can't remember exactly when the prophet Cisco sang that song.
You failed the mirror test with that one.
Aha!
You were the mirroring all along.
I was masking my mirroring.
But yeah, the Anointed Throng is a Vigilist detachment specifically for Aberrants, and I will be using 20. And then the Deliverance Brood Surge is for Neophytes and for Acolytes. I'm just using Acolytes. I'm not using Neophytes in this list, but I mean, they're both really good, and I kind of just want to use all things. I'll be using 3 relics every game because so many of the relics are good, and I love them.
I can assume one of them will be that sniper rifle that shoots
it depends.
psychics in the face?
It depends. If I'm against...
Right, then you'll buy it.
If I'm against a list that has a lot of low wound characters or psychers and stuff like that, then yeah, I'll use it. But I think that the 2, like, shoe-in ones that I'll be using almost every game, one... depending on what I'm against, is the Crouchling, which is
is it like a relic familiar?
It's a relic familiar, yes. And it adds 1 to your... It not only gives the user while it's alive.
It's adorable. I like the idea of a relic box, but one of them is like a little creature in there. Like, you open up the chest and he's like, "Ow, take me, please."
Yes.
Don't feed me, don't close the chest.
I will teach you all of the powers.
Wait. Just close the lid.
But yeah, he not only while he's alive gives the Psyker an additional knowing of an additional power from the Broodmind table, but also gives a +1 to cast for their psychic power specifically.
It's pretty good.
Which a lot of their psychic powers are 7. There's only 1, I think, that's a 6, maybe 2 that are a 6, but most of them
Welcome
are
to Eldari territory, my friend.
Yeah.
Welcome to the club. It's sometimes hard in here to
Yeah.
get psychic powers off.
And they have one of the best psychic tables in the game. I'm going to get on a pedestal here.
Oh my god, he's really stepping up onto it. That's way high.
I'm going to say that they have the second best psychic table next to Eldari.
Thank you. All still bow before us in our great pointy ears.
But yeah, I mean, one power alone, which is Massive Gnosis. I mean, strike last in combat, -1 to hit, and you can Overwatch.
Yeah, it has a lot of buffs all rolled into one.
In one thing is so good. But yeah, I mean, the big thing, though, is that in the FAQ, dear God, I hope they
Again, we don't know. It might have happened.
Mental Onslaught has to get nerfed. Because I did with the list that I built, I was like, oh my God, I can make my Patriarch a 13 leadership without doing anything.
Yeah.
And then I have a chance to do 86% damage to a knight from 1 psychic power.
Whee!
But yeah, so that I won't get into the full list, but that, it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to use it. It's going to be a very tricky list to learn to begin with because there's so many things I have to remember, but God damn it, I can't wait.
Oh yeah. Oh, hold on a second. I'm gonna turn the wheel. We got off on this beaten path. Let me just. Yeah. All right, there we go. We're back on. We went down one of these side
Seizing,
aisles.
right? Yes.
So you're playing your fun list, Deathwatch.
So I'm playing, my fun army, which is Deathwatch. Eventually, I'll build the funnest of fun army versions of that, which just is 30 Terminators. Because when I think of Deathwatch, I think of Elite of Elite And when I think of like jumping into a Space Hulk, it's got to be Terminator.
Got to be those Termies.
And Terminator's got a huge buff with bolter discipline. Being able to shoot 4 shots at any distance is so good with special issue ammo.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Always a 24, just like da-da-da-da-da-da.
Especially with their deep strike, it makes their deep strike so much more flexible. They can hit so much farther behind the enemy. Never having to think about rapid fire range ever is
nice.
Just like, oh, I can't wait. But the list I was bringing this time was my normal 30 intercessors list, 1 captain with a jump pack. I only had 1 Chaplain Venerable Dreadnought. Now, my final list has 3. I love them a lot. With Twin Last Cannon, Stormbolter, and Dreadnought Fist. They're just a very good unit for Deathwatch, specifically because I can deploy them, and I can give them the Warlord trait that gives me the reroll once per game, and the on a 5+ I get CP back, which is really good because I always will deploy them, and it's a 9-wound character, so it can't be targeted. And I can just put something a little bit in front of them. Actually, it terrorizes night lists because I can just put like half of a unit in a ruin in front of them and have them lobbing 2+ to hit, rerolling 1s, 3+ to wound, rerolling 1 last cannon shots at knights, and the knights literally can't shoot them unless they're firing shieldbreaker missiles.
Yep, and that's not what that shieldbreaker missile is supposed to be used for.
Not on the thing with 9 wounds and a built-in 6-up feel no pain. So not the best target for those. I mean, on average, 2 shieldbreaker missiles from a Castellan doesn't even kill it. So it's just like
that's true.
Yeah, so they're a fantastic unit. I love them, but instead in this list I only have 1. And then I had a Vanguard detachment with 4 assassins because I already loved assassins. I brought 3 to LVO pre-buff, and now they've gone to crazy levels of silly.
You must have been so excited to be like, I already love these things, and they got just dialed up to 11.
Yeah, I already thought Eversurs were amazing. A lot of people, think that the Calexis is one of the best. I actually think that the Calexis is the most niche now because most people are used to him enough that, like, even playing against Eldari players, like the people that like your list have Psychers on bikes, they're fast enough that they just stay out of the way. Like it's only an 18-inch bubble.
Yeah, it's dependent, right? Like I think against like some Chaos armies, like against Thousand Suns, that can just be like an automatic shutdown of most of their damage. You just leave them out front and you're like, well, all your smites hit nothing.
Yeah, but the thing is that 1 I don't think is enough because I think if you only have the 1, then they just can maneuver around him because you can't ever put anything else in front of him.
Sure.
I've used him a bunch, and I'm telling you, like, even going against psychic players, like, I went against Thousand Suns and Nurgle at LVO, and he literally just went around them.
Just kited him.
Because if you have things like Demon Princes on wings, they literally just go around.
You know what's interesting? One of the assassins that I see coming back more than anything else that I didn't see before is the Calidus assassin.
Yes. And especially, I was just going to say, a lot of people are thinking that's the shoo-in in most circumstances because that on a 4+, an additional CP to a stratagem makes people run out real quick.
And turn 1 is usually the time where people bleed hard on stratagems, but now with her new additional stratagem, you can just push that into the following turn as well.
Yes.
Which is pretty good.
Turn 1 and 2, everything costs extra.
Wow.
It's real annoying.
For 85 points, that's not bad.
That also bypasses the detachment rules in ITC. So, so I would expect more than anything. A lot of people were saying Vindicares were going to be in every list. I honestly think in the competitive top tier Imperial list, you'll see a Calidus in almost every list.
Yeah.
I was not using them. I was using the ones that are my favorites, because this is my fluffy.
Which is the correct way.
That's
it is the fun list.
I was using 2 Eversur Assassins because I still had them and I love them to death. My little berserkers that just explode and they're hilarious.
Yay!
Just throw them with reckless abandon. And then I was using 2 of the new Vindicares. And I was originally, when I first saw the Vindicares rules, I was thinking that the Vindicares were actually a little bit overpowered. I thought they were. And they're really not. They're really not at all. Because the initial damage, like they do damage now like they did previously, where it's a D3 damage weapon, and then if you roll a 6 to wound, it's a D6 damage. But now, after they deal damage, if the thing is still alive, on the 3+, you deal a mortal wound, then a 4+, a mortal wound, 5+ mortal wound. I thought because of that, they were going to be too strong, but honestly, because their initial damage is only D3, like you could just roll a 1 or a 2 and then maybe get 1 or 2 bonus damage, and you still haven't killed most characters.
That's true.
So, like, it's really not that bad. Now, granted, I did think, I strategized this, that I would need to take 2, because if the opponent has a Vindicare, then you need 2 because you can deploy them freely. You don't deep strike them, you just deploy them, turn 1. Because that means that when he brings his Vindicare in, if he tries to shoot yours, he hits on a 5.
Which is really important.
That's huge. That's a big deal.
I actually, at this very same tournament, and I know we'll eventually get to the C's, but at this very same tournament, somebody also had a Vindicare on Vindicare battle in a game, and the other opponent had 2 Vindicares, and he had 1, and he went first, and somehow didn't place his 2 Vindicares, like, out of line of sight, and his Vindicare shot, killed one, used the stratagem to shoot again, and then killed the other Vindicare. Just a master assassin.
Ouch.
That's like, well played, sir.
Man, rolling hot.
Yeah. Oh, very hot.
Whereas I roll regular 1s with my Vindicares.
Indeed.
So.
That is your special ability.
But then the last part of the list is my Knight Gallant with 2 Helverins. So, getting into the actual game. So, I was actually doing pretty well. Game 1 and Game 2 were both wins. Did pretty well. Against Game 3, I was against another player with some Death Watch, another player with a Knight and 2 Helverins, though he had a Shooty Knight, and I had a Melee Knight. And then he was also using the Loyal 32. So, he had big CP farm and screening and stuff like that. And really, there were 2 big mistakes that I made that game. The first big mistake that I made was when I charged an Eversur into an infantry unit that he had. Now, he was using his infantry units to screen my Gallant from being able to get to his Knight. Mm-hmm. And this was important because once my Gallant got into his back lines and killed that Knight, he literally had almost no way to get rid of the Knight at that point, and it's in his CP farm, where his Hydra is, where his Helverins are, and the Helverins literally couldn't escape from that space. The buildings were close enough to the walls that their base was too big.
Oh, so they couldn't even get around it.
They could not even get out.
So the only way around is to try to get through a Gallant.
Yeah.
Good luck.
So, unfortunately, when I charged the Eversur into the last screening unit he had, I forgot the Eversur's rule that for every model you kill, it gets a bonus attack. And then at that point, it was too late into the turn. It was already the beginning of his turn, and we couldn't go back. And he had 2 guys remaining that were able to move into the way with move, and block my Knight.
Jeez.
So luckily, I did counteract it slightly by him leaving his guys within 3 inches of my Knight, and then in his turn, heroic and intervening into his infantry.
Ooh, that's good.
So that like played it off, but at the same time, it was just like my real C's of that game was I got 2 CP hungry. I essentially used enough. I was intentionally saving 4 so that I could use 3 to resurrect my Knight if it died, and then potentially use the 1 extra to reroll the 4+ to see if it comes back, because it's not automatic.
That's true.
And then if I didn't need to do that, then use that CP to put him at full power. That was basically my strategy there. And then when he fired at me in basically his final turn to kill the Knight, I ended up using one of the CP to do a reroll for a save that I didn't need to do.
Oh, no.
And because I did that, it meant that my Knight not only died, it did come back, but I couldn't put it at full power, which meant that I had a long charge to get to his Knight. And he had Overwatch, and I couldn't do any rerolls to any of my saves, nor could I rotate Ion Shields for the Overwatch.
Jeez.
And he rolled hot. He rolled with his Gatling Cannon like 4 hits and 3 wounds with just the Gatling Cannon. And if I had been able to rotate Ion Shields, I would have been able to survive. So that basically, at that point, I had some bad rolls. He had some amazing rolls. But when that happened, that was the game. Like, there was no recovery.
And I mean, that's like a really good important point about like budgeting your CP. And like I think too many times, because like it's really easy to just like, oh, I'll reroll that, that's important. Like it's really important to like think about your army, like how you use CP, and like when it's okay to just do a general armor save reroll. If it's gonna net you X amount of points because you're the last guy on an objective and you're gonna swing blah blah blah, like maybe that's valid. But otherwise, like yeah, that's a really good lesson about like how to use CP.
Yeah, and the worst part is I had planned it out. I had set the 4 CP aside, and I was like, I know exactly what I need to do with this. And then I thought, because I got lucky in his turn, all of his main guns on his Knight I saved against with a rotate. I rotated, which was the first mistake, because I shouldn't have rotated, but luckily with my Warlord trait, I got the CP back, so I still had 4, and then I didn't learn the lesson, and I used another one for a reroll, which was just like, damn it.
Son of a gun.
I was my own worst enemy, but yeah, I mean, oh well. That's the way it goes sometimes.
It is. All right, so my Seize of the Month, as you guys know, I've been playing Necrons. So I've been playing them for quite a while now, 2 RTTs, and I'm in a league actually at our store, Game Empire in Pasadena. And it's been really fun. The league is great, run by a great guy by the name of Jeff Poole. He's doing an excellent job. Shout out to you, sir.
He's all right.
He's all right. Nah, he's cool. But basically, I've been running a list for a couple games now. I kind of got down to what I like as my core Necron list. And it basically works like this. How many Tomb Blades can you fit into an army? 27 is the max number. 27 Tomb Blades it is. Now, I want to share this with everyone. If you go to build 27 Tomb Blades, know that it is a long and arduous journey. You will lose yourself many times. Your sanity will be tested. How many pieces can fit on one of these tiny fucking bikes? The answer is a lot.
Well, it's also because it's not a non-conventional bike design, Jay.
That's very true. So I think, if you want to build 27 Tomb Blades, they're effective. They're a very good unit in the Necron Codex. But just know ahead of time that you're in for one hell of a go. It is rough. But what's interesting about it, and I think I mentioned this on the last episode, is that I wanted to try an army that's minimum CP. The army itself is only 5 CP total.
I think there was also one other caveat to this army that you wanted to try.
Yes.
And it's everything flies.
Yes. And everything does fly. Because I hate getting trapped by things. And then they're faster, it's fun. But basically, the army is just 2 detachments, all 1 CP detachments. It's like, I always forget the names. It's the heavy one and then the fast one.
Outrider and Spearhead.
There we go. And they're all Mephrit. And the reason is because I want to make sure that the auras and things interplay with each other well. And I only need to have basically 2 characters in the army, because you just need 1 for each detachment. And my 2 characters are a Catacomb Command Barge and a Cryptek with a Canoptic Cloak. Now, I know it's like, why not the Chronometron for 5++? Well, when most of your army is Tomb Blades and they don't benefit from a Chronometron, which we'll talk about a little bit later, you take the cloak. Now,
I sense bitterness.
Now, I do have one unit in here that would benefit from it, which is the 6 destroyers in the army, and the 6 destroyers are great. I think you could make an argument for having 2 units of 6 destroyers in a Necron army. Definitely not more than 2. But I find 1 is pretty good because destroyers, they either go first and they completely obliterate something and then die, or the opponent goes first and then they die. So destroyers in almost every one of my games never made it past turn 2. Just because usually when you pop 1 CP for extermination protocols, which is reroll all hits and reroll all wounds on a strength 6 -3 D3 damage gun, and
with 3 shots,
and that unit spits out 18 of them, they're like, okay, well, that has to die. Absolutely. And they're only 3 wounds, 3 up armor, T5 with no invul save, unless you take a Chronometron, but I didn't. And even then, that doesn't save them. I've done it before. They'll just get peppered with something nasty and they'll die. But basically, the other piece of the list, in addition to those things, are 3 Doomsday Arcs. And that's it. 3 Doomsday Arcs, 3 units of full Tomb Blades, 1 Destroyer unit, a Cryptek, and a Catacomb Command Barge. And it's fairly small in that sense. And basically what the army is meant to do is it's meant to survive. That's the entire deal.
It's meant to assault them.
No assault. just all staying alive.
Close combat focus.
Staying alive. Basically, the Doomsday Arcs sit in the back and just fire off big shots if anything gets close to them, which this surprised a lot of opponents that they completely forget that they have 2 Gauze Flare Arrays on there.
10 Gauze Flares.
Which is 20 shots within 12 inches. And when you're Mephrit, you get an extra AP on there if you're within half range. So at 12 inches, they are strength 4 -2 AP, 1 damage, 20 shots, just murdering units.
Which is the money AP.
It is the money AP.
That is the best AP in the game, is to be AP2.
But otherwise, they sit in the back. If you don't get close to them, they sit on objectives and just fire huge, massive strength 10 minus 5 d6 damage shots at you. And then the rest of the army basically works like a hive of bees. You have the Catacomb Command Barge in the center. That's your warlord, because he's actually really hard to kill. Catacomb Command Barges have 8 wounds. You can't target them. They're character.
Quantum shielding.
And quantum shielding, baby. They make Smash Captains really sad when they jump in there with their, like, flat 4 damage. Like, yeah, 4 damage. You're like, I rolled a 3. No damage. Like, what?
I mean, even with just the 3 damage version, if you're just rolling 1s and 2s for days, and it's just like...
And there's a 1 CP strat you can use to basically make that -1 when you roll for quantum shielding. So then you're just rolling 1s, 2s, and 3s, and you just ignore it. So it's really fun. And then basically how it works is the Catacomb Command Barge Warlord has the Warlord trait Immortal Pride, which it gives you a free deny, which is nice sometimes. It never really worked every time I tried it. But what it does do is everything within 6 inches ignores morale, which is massive for
very
Necrons.
important.
Because the other thing I have is the Cryptek has the Canoptic Cloak, which it helps heal himself with, if you have a living metal ability, it can help you heal. It helps heal the Catacomb Command Barge.
Gives him fly.
Really, the two of them sit at the center and move up with just a ring of 3 units of Tomb Blades around them, because what happens is my opponent will shoot at my Tomb Blades, and since people, I find, at least in our area, don't play Necrons that often, they don't think about overkilling a unit or think about reanimation protocols. But if you leave one Tomb Blade alive, they're always right next to how I kill them in an order. They always end up right next to my Cryptek and my Catacomb Command Barge, so they pass morale automatically. Then I take 8 dice for the 8 guys that died, and I roll, and on 4 pluses, thanks to my Cryptek, they come back.
Average of 3 to 4 guys back.
And there have been multiple games where people are like, what? And just like most of the unit reappears. I'm like, all right, let's keep going, guys. That works on the destroyers. That works on all the Tomb Blades, which is hilarious.
As we know, though, everybody just overkills the destroyers. Just not the Tomb Blades.
That's true. They never make it. They're always like, no, I'm killing every single one of those. But the Tomb Blades are surprising because I equip the Tomb Blades with shield veins, which give them a 3+ armor save instead of 4+. And I also give them, this is something I played around with a while because it is expensive, but there isn't too much more I want to add to the army outside of what I already have. So basically, I gave them all Shadow Looms, and Shadow Looms basically give them a 5+ invulnerable save in shooting and close combat.
Yes.
So it makes them really, really durable. Like, yes, it's only a 5+, but you'd be surprised with having 2 wounds and a 5+ invul. They can take quite a bit of firepower, and they're -1 to hit, too.
Native -1 is very important.
Like, they take a lot of punishment, and there are plenty of scenarios where I have just 1 left, and that's all you need.
That's all you need.
Get a whole bunch back. So that's how the army plays. And I've done decently well. I've lost some games, won some games. It's definitely fun. But my C's is I actually played the same person you played, Andrew, who was running that Death Watch army.
Both our butts.
He is a master among men for beating us.
Damn you!
Two unbeatable champions. We're okay. But yeah, obviously, as you said, he's running some Death Watch with a Knight, some Helverins, and some Imperial Guard backing him up. And the game was actually going really, really well. We were going tit for tat. He was hiding his Helverins and his Knights from my Doomsday Arcs, because if you don't know, because of quantum shielding, Knights and things don't really want to shoot at my Doomsday Arcs. They've got 14 wounds and quantum shielding, so they just ignore big shots coming at them all the time.
Yeah, Helverin actually would have a really hard time killing one of those, because not only do you still get a 5+ save against its guns, but then 1 or 2, and it does 0 damage.
Yeah, it's funny how well they survive. I think one might have died out of the entire RTT. They just sit back and just fire away. And I got some bad rolls with the Doomsday Arcs. I got some good rolls with them, which seems to be the way that Doomsday Arcs work. They're very random.
Swingy.
Very, very swingy. But we were trading a lot of good hits. He was taking out units. He picked up on my shtick of leaving at least 1 Tomb Blade alive, so he did a really good job of cleaning up whole units. His Death Watch came in. He made the mistake, as I pointed to earlier, of not knowing that Doomsday Arcs are pretty good when you're close to them. So my Doomsday Arcs moved up and just cleared pretty much 2 full units of Death Watch with Storm Shields and Terminators, just completely blew him off the board. Because 60 shots at Strength 4 -2 AP is pretty good.
Not to mention the big cannons.
Oh, yeah. So, essentially, at the end of the game, we had done a really good job of, like, trading blows, and it looked like we were about to tie. And we added up all the points. We were playing ITC, and sure enough, we tied the game. And I was like, well, that was, I mean, you can't get more tight than a tie game. Like, that's a great game. And then he was like, wait a second. you picked Titan Slayers, right? And I was like, yeah. I got 2 points for Titan Slayers. I killed that one Helverin. I took enough wounds off the other one that I'd taken a total of 16 wounds off of 2 Titan units. He was like, Helverins aren't Titans. I'm like, what? They're in the Knight Codex. I'm pretty sure they have the Titanic keyword. He's like, I don't think so. And we pull out the Codex. Sure enough, Helverins are not Titanic. So when I thought we tied the game, turns out I lost by 2.
So in other words, it's Jay's fault that I played him in the final round.
Yes, that's my fault that you played. Yes, because we played first at the beginning of the day.
Yeah.
So my Seize of the Month is read the rules for things, even if they're the tournament pack rules or the Codex rules. So that was my Seize of the Month. But basically, this has kind of led to a transition for me in armies I'm going to play going forward. I'm actually now going to put the Necrons back in the Tomb World.
How dare you? We made a commitment that we were supposed to hold to in January.
They're going back into the sleepy time. They got to recharge. And
only I'm not allowed to play a new army every week.
Only you're allowed to be passionate about a new army every single episode. But yeah, so I am returning to the old lady who's been by my side all these years, which is, of course, Space Marines. Just kidding. I'm going back to Eldari, and I'm going back to pure Craft Worlds. With the new ITC faction rules coming out, where you have to be a pure faction to be able to win best in faction. And I figured, I might as well give it a shot. Eldar is not very popular. Nobody's playing them right now.
Well, that's specifically why I took out all of my allies in my Genestealer Cult. And
you're going pure Genestealer Cult.
Yep.
So we're both doing this. So we'll see what becomes of that. Hopefully, there's always been rumblings in the future that there might be more rewarding, maybe in CP or things for a pure faction. You never know. Maybe it was in this FAQ. Again, we don't know because it doesn't exist right now. But I wanted to try the list that I had again previously and make some tweaks. I took out the Harlequin, so if you've listened to previous episodes back when we went to LVO, it's pretty much the same, except I have now included a very key unit that's replaced my Solitaire and Death Jesters and things like that. I've switched a couple things around. I've added Spirit Stones to the Wave Serpents, which makes them a lot more durable, which was a good choice. But really, I've added in some Wraith Blades. 6 Wraith Blades. And I won't talk about the new army too much. That might be for next episode. We'll see how it goes. But what I do want to talk about is Necrons and why I'm stepping aside from Necrons for a little bit. And I really love Necrons. I really love their fluff over these.
They're too bright, right? There's so much filler.
Just too bright. I can't see the board when all of it's just bouncing off the metal. No, it's a little bit because going from Eldari to Necrons, there's phases, right? My first phase of entering Necrons is I was like, oh, okay, so I'm not doing Psychic. I'm not really doing a lot of charging. And yes, I know you can build charging units in Necrons.
The Necron list that I will eventually someday play is basically all combat.
You got Canoptic guys up the wazoo, and they charge a bunch of stuff. But I guess how I wanted to play them, there wasn't that much charging available. I like units that can kind of do a mix of things, which is why I typically like the Seer Council, because you can do Psychic, you can shoot, you can charge.
Your shtick has always kind of been the overwhelming firepower with just a few. You want to throw in a few good combat units.
And I found after playing the army a whole bunch, and again, I built 27 Tomb Blades. I was dedicated to this. And also, Doomsday Arcs are no joke. They are very heavy and very long process to build as well. So a lot of investment into time to build out this army. But what I found is that with how the Codex works today, there are just too many misses or holes where things just don't exactly line up. And I think there are definitely some Necron players out there that I'd love to hear from. So if you have some things you'd love to share with us, I'd love to hear your feedback and the things that you see working really well, and it might just be your style versus how I like to play, which is always a very personal player choice. But for me, with how My Will Be Done works, which if you don't know, it's at the top of the turn, very important. Within, I think it's 3 inches or 6 inches, could be one of those. The Overlord picks a unit, and they get +1 to their ballistic skill, +1 to advance, and +1 to charge.
Specifically infantry, though.
Specifically infantry. Only infantry. And I think it's a real miss in 2 ways. One, I like My Will Be Done, but it would create such a more unique and dynamic army if, one, you could do it at the end of the turn.
No, I just said in the movement phase.
Could be in the movement phase, but even if it's just end of the turn, it still leaves the tactical choices you can make, because what you could do then
You mean
is,
end of the phase?
End of the phase, yeah. Because what you could do is you could deep strike flayers in. Flayed ones. I love flayed ones. They're very expensive at 17 points. Again, as things exist right now in time. But like, it would be really cool to deep strike them in. My will be done at the end of the phase. And now they have a +1 to charge. Now they have a chance to potentially not reliably, but more reliably get into combat. And that's an exciting choice.
It's more interesting when it's more flexible. And yeah, it only affecting infantry really hurts when a lot of the fun stuff is not infantry.
Yeah, it doesn't affect Tomb Blades in any way. It doesn't affect any of the vehicles. Like, I don't think it would be too overpowered for My Will Be Done. You could put it on a Doomsday Arc. Now it hits on 2s. Yeah, it hits on 2s, but if you haven't played against a Doomsday Arc or played with one, they are extremely random. It is a d6 number of shots, then you have to hit, wound, and then it is d6 damage. There's so much variability that I find playing with them. They're still great, and I play with them because I don't find a better replacement unit for them for long-distance damage. Necrons don't really have that, other than flyers, but again, you're getting up in their face and they're blowing up.
Yeah. I mean, I think we are on the wavelength of if it's sometime during the phase or the end of the phase, whatever. It has to be during the phase because it adds +1 to their movement characteristic to their advance. So which is done when they move. So it has to be during the movement phase. It should just affect anything that's not canoptic. There's no real reason for it not to affect everything else that's Necron used because it's literally their overarching commanders saying, do this thing.
Yeah, also, +1 to advance, that could go away. I truly, like, if it's not going to affect Canoptic or things that would really benefit from a +1 to advance, like, are you charging warriors into units? I mean, I know there's things you can do with Anchor the Traveler that can make you, like, additional attacks with warriors. I know there's little things you can do, but it just doesn't feel natural and symbiotic with the rest of the codex.
Well, I was saying that it would be cool if it could affect other things, and I'm fine with it giving the bonus to advance as well, because the bonus to advance and the hitting could do cool stuff with the one dynasty that can advance through objects, which I think is rad. And like, there's just, when you have an ability that has greater flexibility, it makes it more interesting. But then there's some other things that make you pull away from Necrons. And what are those, Jay?
Yeah, and the other things are like, when I started playing with the Necrons and how I was playing them again, I found that I started playing a 5 CP list because there wasn't too many things in terms of stratagems that I felt I could really do. I wasn't being reactive. Most of the stratagems are like 1 CP, 4A extermination protocols, and that's like the most offensive one. A lot of the other ones are like situational, like teleport a guy in out of a monolith, because, you see monoliths everywhere. Or like do a double teleportation off of a monolith. Or, make a vehicle shoot at full capacity. But there wasn't like a lot of like really, I don't want to say tricky, but like really interesting and dynamic stratagems that I felt like were either defensive, where like with Eldari, right, you can have a -2 to hit with lightning fast reactions. I didn't feel like I was connecting with the army and the strategies as closely. I was more or less just reacting to just outcomes my opponent would get, and I'd be like, oh, my character died, I want to try to bring him back on a 4+. Like, I just didn't feel that connected to the stratagems. The other piece is, I really miss some of the fun and randomness. I think I've even said this before, that like the randomness can sometimes be too swingy for me, but to psychic powers. I really enjoy psychic powers, and I really enjoy the mix with that and close combat, and just how I was enjoying playing Necrons. I just wasn't really getting out of it what I was missing from Eldari.
Yeah, so I think the last note that I'll give is that I feel like, even though Tau is doing very well in the competitive scene these days.
Oh, yeah, it's doing great.
I feel like Tau and Necron sort of sit in the same boat of being these early Xenos armies that unfortunately really only have like 1 or 2 ways to play, and it just really limits how much fun and variety you can have with the army.
Tau, definitely. And I think, again, I'd love to hear from some listeners out there who are playing Necrons and are playing some really dynamic lists. Obviously, I wouldn't say my list that I made is like the standard Necron list. I don't think I've really seen somebody throw out 27 Tomb Blades on the table. But like, I'd love to see, hopefully, when there's like a Vigilus Ablaze 2.0 down the road, where you can get new detachments or even a new codex down in many years down the road for Necrons. I'd love to see some tweaks and some adjustments to how those abilities and auras and things work, so that the army feels like it works together as a whole, instead of just, do you got infantry? Did they start on the board and they're near this guy? All right, well, you can do My Will Be Done. Otherwise, nothing else. You can't Veil of Darkness and do it. You can't have guys come out of Deep Strike and do it. You can't do it to that vehicle. Like, just be interested to see what they do down the road. But, anyways, those were our Seas of the Month and a random rant about Necrons and how I've gone back to the old Space Keebler, the lady of the trees, the lady of the cookies. Really leaning into this bit.
You're going deep.
Too far.
Pull back.
Deep in the dough. But now that takes us to our newer segment, the Crystal Stacks. Here we are in the Crystal Stacks. I mean, we're always in the Crystal Stacks, but we're now more in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, reflecting off of the many apertures.
Yeah, many apertures and crystals and mirror people. And home to the World Wide Web way, which is that new piece of technology we were just able to switch on.
It isn't the same as the old Voxbox, but the World Wide Web way.
The old Voxbox.
The old Voxbox, but the World Wide Web way is
pretty cool. We get a lot better reception. We have to agree.
We can actually like talk to people now.
Yeah, way less dust too. You'd suspect there'd be a lot of dust in here, but it's all surprisingly just pristine and clean.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if we say talk to people. I mean, if you've ever tried to have a conversation with a Harlequin, it's very one-sided. It's mostly just us talking at them.
Yeah, pretty much. Or them laughing at us. Or laughing at us as they do backflips. Very agile.
Or just laughs coming from somewhere, but not really sure if it's the
like that could just
person
be
in front.
Yeah, I feel like it could just be the library. Or a silly Harlequin trick or something like that. I'm not sure. But anyways, here in the Crystal Stack segment, we do like we used to do in a previous library, where we talk about a list, discuss why it's built and how it's built that way. Sometimes we do listener lists, so submit your ideas. But Andrew, what are we talking about for this episode?
Okay, so I wanted to have a kind of juxtaposition list. So we did a list previously in the past year that was essentially the last hurrah of Genestealer Cult before they got their own book. And it was called Birthday Surprise.
Oh, boy.
You should listen to that episode because it's a lot of fun, but that list, unfortunately, is no longer relevant.
It cannot surprise on said birthday?
Not in the same way, Jay.
Oh, boy.
So instead, this time, I decided to build a list that's totally counter to the list that I'm actually playing.
Oh, my goodness.
This is like a wish list.
Ooh, I like it.
Get it? Wish list? I made human jokes.
That joke was too bad for it to not be you, so I assume this is actually Andrew.
Yeah!
You passed the mirror test, you jerk.
So I wanted to do a list that was centrally focused around one set of units that you sort of see a little bit of one right now with a certain stratagem, and that's their what I call the mining vehicle catalog.
The mining vehicle catalog?
I guess that's the best way to describe it.
That's a mouthful, sir.
Well, because they have a lot of different versions now. Previously, they just had the Goliath truck and the variant of it, which the only difference is the gun, and it's got a big ram in the front.
This one, we put a ram on it. Yeah, we get it, Greg.
Yeah, the Goliath rock grinder is what it's called.
And it's just so cool looking.
I mean, that thing looks... you don't want that thing ramming into you. Holy shit.
You don't. Basically, it sounds like they got like the battle wagon treatment. Kind of like how the orcs came back and they were like, we don't just got one battle wagon, baby. We got 3 variations.
Well, it's only... Yeah, so they still have those same 2, but now they have another cool one that's very, reminiscent to an old data slated game called Halo.
Ooh, Halo.
It looks like the Halo Warthog. It's called the Achilles Ridge Runner. And then it
is a really cool looking vehicle.
It is. And I have them, and they're surprisingly tiny. Like, they're really small and really not tall at all. They're only like a couple inches off the ground. It's really kind of amusing.
Lowrider.
But then they also got one of the coolest model sets in the game, which is the new dirt bikes that they have.
They're so cool looking.
Called Italian Jackals. They are just so rad.
Yeah.
They look so great. So we're focusing on that stuff.
Ooh, I like this. So very just on the move.
On the move. Always moving. Always be moving. That's what they say.
Is that what they say?
They say that, I'm sure.
Always be moving. For the four-armed emperor.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know why I had them speaking in monotone
why were
voices.
they in...
They're just people. They're just people living their lives. Sure, they worship a space bug god, but, they're just Just people.
Well, it is somewhat relevant because the first detachment that we have 2 detachments in this list. The first one is a brigade, and then the second one is an outrider. Sorry, it's a fast attack outrider.
Fast attack, right? See, I know all the names of detachments.
What's the heavy support one?
Heavy spear detachment. You know how spears and
Spearhead. Spearhead is what it's
sometimes
called.
be heavy? I was right, I think.
So in our brigade, we are using the Cult Creed Bladed Cog, which is why I said it's somewhat relevant.
I see some familiarity here.
That I may have mentioned this previously because it's the one I use. It's just so good. So Bladed Cog, if you don't know the background of it, Bladed Cog, the reason I said the robot voice was relevant is because they live on a hive world that's also a forge world. So they don't like the Mechanicus.
Not a big fan?
At all. Their stratagem is in fact called Overthrow the Oppressors, and it specifically most punishes Mechanicus.
Ooh, it's a fluffy stratagem.
I mean, it punishes it kind of everybody, but like it's like really hardcore against
super punishes
Mechanicus.
them. Those are like the best fluffy ones because there's like the fluffy ones that go maybe a little too far.
Where it's literally unusable against a specific army.
Where it's either unusable or it is absurdly overpowered against an army.
What, you mean like demons having a stratagem against specifically demon slayers that just gets their entire unit back for reasons?
Yeah, that's a weird one.
But yeah, Bladed Cog, what the Cult Creed gives them is that every unit in Bladed Cog gets a 6+ invulnerable save, which is actually very valuable. It's essentially their version of Bionics, which if all AdMech units have is a 6+ invulnerable save from their Bionics.
Right.
So they've kind of copied that. But that's important for this army because most things in this army have at best a 5+ save.
Ooh.
Their vehicles are the only exception that have 4+ saves. So like any real AP weapons is going to be denying their saves. So having a save against anything is very useful.
Yes.
The other thing that Bladed Cog gives is it allows the infantry units, infantry specifically, unfortunately it doesn't affect their vehicles, which stinks.
Oh.
But infantry can move and fire heavy weapons without penalty.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
And that's specifically useful for Neophyte Hybrids that can get access to mining lasers, one of my favorite weapons in the game. It's a handheld las cannon, and it's hilarious.
I just love the idea that the weapons in the 40K universe are just so insanely powerful that you could just rip one off of just like a construction vehicle and it can just tear apart tanks.
Yeah, I mean, like, these guys literally just use mining equipment, and turns out the mining equipment is lethal because it needs to be that strong.
To cut into the core of a planet. Oh, I guess this cut through the core of a planet. I guess it could cut a tank in half because tanks are made of cores of planet.
I mean, the logic tracks.
It does, right?
So in this detachment, we have 3 HQs now. So if you don't know, with the new Genestealer book, they have one specific rule that is actually a pretty great balance to their army because they have a lot of really good characters. And the rule is that you can't have a duplicate of the same character in each detachment. So you can only have one of each type of HQ in that detachment, only one of each type of their elite characters.
Like for everybody, not
Everyone.
just the Kellermorph and his crazy guns.
No, not just the Kellermorph. Like their Sanctus, which is their assassin, Patriarchs. You can't do, like have 3 Patriarchs in one detachment. Can't do it.
It's very fluffy.
Which is fluffy, but also a good balance to the army because their characters are exceptionally good.
Is the Patriarch unique? Is it like you can only have one in an entire army?
No, it is not. You can have one per detachment, but if you have a Patriarch in a Genestealer Cult's detachment, and that detachment is your primary detachment, he must be your warlord.
That makes sense.
Which, yeah, that makes all the sense.
Now, what if you have 2 equal-sized detachments and 2 Patriarchs? Must they do battle? Must they fight for dominance?
I think the one's just like psychically says to the other, hey, you can be the guy.
Oh, I wanted a battle for dominance.
They're like really not like that at all.
Fine.
They're kind of blind followers. Do you know how Genestealer Cult works?
They gave me a pamphlet last week when I went out visiting through the webway, and I don't know, man. They make some pretty good points. Why? What's going on?
So it turns out they're one of the most tragic factions in the game.
Oh, I got my ID and everything.
So if you don't know, some of the fluff behind Genestealer cults is that Genestealer cults, the reason they're called that is because there's an alien biomorph, part of the Tyranid's hive fleets, called a Genestealer, and it has the ability with a proboscis to essentially inject some of its genetic material into another living thing. Now what happens is, specifically with humans, because this is a human-focused cult list and army, is that the first generation of bred humans from someone who's been infected is a horrible monstrosity thing called an acolyte, which is super mutated and very unhuman-esque. Has basically, it looks very Genestealer-esque, but like, 3 arms and scales and all this stuff. Possibly face tentacles, you never really know.
Ooh, good old face tentacles.
And then the second, as the generations go on, second, third, and then eventually fourth generation, which are called neophytes, look remarkably human. So it's almost like the inverse way you'd think it would go, whereas you'd think like the first ones, you'd barely see a hint.
It is sinister because it feels like, what happened to Tim 2 generations ago? Like, he was just sick. We're all fine now.
Yeah.
Now, I know we all have this weird slight ridge above the top of our forehead, but we're all fine.
Yeah, so basically the fourth generation can almost pass for human. They are very humanoid, but as you said, they tend to have slightly enlarged heads and a ridge above their eyebrows, essentially. But then, after the fourth generation, they literally give birth to pure strain Genestealers, like a full-blown Genestealer.
Man, that is gonna be a rough day in the hospital.
Well, I mean, they apparently love it because it's a symbol of their god, which is the four-armed emperor, which is basically a Tyranid, and they are generations in the making. They literally plan their revolts over generations.
It's pretty cool.
Pretty cool. And then when they finally do an uprising, it's planet-wide. Like, they hit everywhere at once. They do tons of planning. They try to take as many people onto their side as they can with, as what you were apparently absorbed into.
What? I've got
With
a
their
very
pamphlets.
strong will and mental fortitude.
What planet were you on that you got a cult pamphlet?
They gave me free Nikes. Where you can go online and you can design your own. Now I know Nikes are different now than what most people think of. They are they're hover boots. But I got to put my name on it, and I just signed up for their cult.
We need to restrict your access to the World Wide Web way. I mean, it's just
come
it's
on.
clear that you cannot be trusted.
Don't tell the Harlequins. Do you think there's anything inside this badge? I should probably get rid of this, shouldn't I?
Yeah, I would say incinerate.
I mean,
probably.
it is really thick. Yeah, I'll throw it in the Inferno. Be right back.
Yeah.
All right, I threw it out.
Okay, good. It's a good thing, because when they do their overthrow, they create a giant psychic beacon after they've taken over a planet, or sort of sometimes while they're taking over a planet, because turns out the Imperium doesn't like to let this stuff happen.
That makes sense.
And then this psychic beacon calls Tyranid hive fleets to it. And here's where it's tragedy, because they think they're going to be elevated to the status of their gods and ascend.
But instead, they're just eaten.
As they say, ascension draws near. But when the hive fleet arrives and all of the pure strains that they've bred, and including their patriarch, which is a mutated Genestealer, they get taken over by the hive mind and they pretty much just slaughter everybody. Because it's all food.
Yeah.
So I guess technically they've achieved what they've wanted, which they've become part of the hive mind in biomass at least.
Yeah, I guess that's how you could explain that, if you're a monster.
So yeah, that's Genestealer cults.
Terrifying.
So let's go into this list. So in the brigade, our Bladed Cog Brigade, we have a Jackal Alphus, which is essentially the biker hero. He's got a sniper rifle. That's, counterintuitive, I feel, to ride a bike and have a sniper rifle.
I got my sniper rifle, my motorbike, the perfect combination.
But I guess it allows him to relocate really well.
I mean, yeah, I guess it does. But otherwise, I hope he's not trying to shoot that thing aboard that bike. It's literally made for off-road, difficult, bumpy, rigid terrain.
Yeah, which is good for snipers, right?
Yeah,
it gets them to new positions,
Of course.
The road's calling. 10 points to the listener who can know where that quote's from.
Yes. We'll send you those 10 points in the mail.
Yes.
We can't do that, can we?
Can't we now?
No, we can't.
We don't have a mail service in here, do we?
But we got the World Wide Web way. We'll figure it out.
Just as long as you don't use it.
Yeah, that's fair.
So the Jackal Alphus comes with a Jackal sniper rifle, which is actually better than a standard sniper rifle because it's AP -2, which is nice.
That's nice.
It's also D3 damage, which is also good. But you really take him for his special ability. He has an ability that's called Priority Target Sighted, and he essentially can name a unit that's within line of sight in 36 inches of him, and all of his cult members that are within 6 inches, anything in the army within 6 inches of him gets a +1 hit against that thing.
That's really good.
It is really good because essentially, even with some of the things like the vehicles, which unfortunately cannot move and fire heavy weapons without penalty, this allows them to essentially counter that if they have to.
That's really cool.
Now, the ability does extend out to 12 inches for bikes, but there won't be any bikes in this detachment. That's the next one.
What?
That's the next one. He's in there to boost all the vehicles.
Makes sense.
Then we have a Primus. The Primus, as was mentioned in our birthday surprise episode, is amazing. He gives a 6-inch aura of +1 to hit to any cult members or cult things within 6 inches of him.
Very
Incredible. And then if he arrives from reserves, then he can name one of the units that are within 6 inches of him and name an enemy unit within 12 inches, and the named friendly unit gets reroll 1s to wound against that enemy unit.
Ooh, that is nice.
Whereas previously, if you remember, before the Codex, is that he basically made like a really improved ambush. Now that's changed, and he's basically just made a thing more killy against something when he comes in. Then our last HQ in this brigade, because we need to have 3 minimum, is a Magus with a 4 stave, which is one of their on-foot psychers. Because Genestealer Cult psychic powers are amazing.
I feel like we've talked about this recently. Did we talk about Genestealer psychic powers? I can't remember.
Maybe not. Now, I did not... There is enough points left still that you could give the Magus a familiar. Familiars are expensive. They are 12 points each. But specifically, the reason I did not give the Magus a familiar in this list is because I want to have him in one of the transports, and the Goliath rock grinders only have a space of 6.
Oh.
And that guy will take an extra space.
Spoiler, we're going to get some rock grinders in there.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
So let's get into the troops. So for our troops, we have 3 units of Neophyte Hybrids. These are the 4th generation, as we said. We have 2 grenade launchers, 2 mining lasers, and all the rest with autoguns.
Nice.
And remember, these guys can move and fire without penalty with the mining lasers, which includes when they're embarked on a vehicle. The vehicle can move, and they can fire without penalty from
with
the vehicle.
Jackal giving him the buff.
No, the Jackal can't give them a buff because they're within a transport.
Correct.
But it does allow them to hit on a 4+, even when they move, with basically a 24-inch last cannon.
That's pretty good.
Because it's the same profile as last cannon, if you don't know. It's strength 9, AP -3, and D6 damage. With the FAQ, it became D6 damage. It wasn't previously.
Ooh, that's a much-needed change for that weapon.
Yeah, it was D3 previously.
Ooh.
And so everything that is mining laser, basically the way that because there's heavy mining lasers, which have more shots and extended range, they all use the same, because it's a mining weapon. It's not an actual weapon. They all use the same focus aperture. It's just how far it can actually extend is different, if that makes sense. Or how long they can hold the beam, which is the extra shots on the heavy mining weapon, which is why they essentially have the same strength, AP, and damage profile. That's like the reasoning behind it.
Makes sense.
So we have 3 units of those, and they'll be riding in 3 Goliath trucks.
Yes.
So we have 3 of the Goliath trucks, which each have a twin autocannon, which, I mean, it's 4-shot autocannon, still good.
Yeah.
A heavy stubber, and then a cache of demolition charges. Now, every single one of our transports has a cache of demolition charges, because, of course. A cache of demolition charges, if you don't know, demolition charges are a D6 grenade weapon. Now, on the transports, it's not a grenade. You can use them as long as somebody is embarked on the vehicle, and it becomes an extra weapon on the vehicle.
Ooh, that's cool. So it's kind of like people standing on top of it and like chucking demo charges off the side.
Just chucking them. And a demo charge is strength 8, AP -3, and D3 damage, and it's D6 shots.
It's good.
Real powerful. So all Goliath trucks have the twin autocannon, the heavy stubber, and a cache of demo charges. Now, we'll get into the extended reason why they have demo charges a little bit later, because it's super fun. And then the rest of our troops, because we need 6 in the brigade, is 3 units of Acolyte Hybrids, each with 5 man. The Acolyte Hybrids all have hand flamers, because why not? It's 1 point, it's D6 shots, and it's an auto-hit flamer weapon. Yeah. It's so great.
Why not?
They're so amazing. And then they each have also 1 demolition charge per unit, which is a one-time use weapon, but it's still only 5 points. We add the extra points. Why not? Then we get into our fast attacks. Our fast attacks are 3 Achilles Ridge Runners, which are the warthogs that we were just talking about previously.
Those guys look so good.
They look rad. And our Achilles Ridge Runners have a heavy mining laser, which, as I said previously, is essentially a bigger version of the regular mining laser. It has 36-inch range instead of 24. It has D3 shots instead of 1, and the same damage profile.
D3 shots is not bad for like a blast cannon.
And it's only, I believe there are 84 points for an 8-wound vehicle with a 6-up invul save. Also, I forgot to mention, all of the, what I call the catalog of things.
Yes, the what is it you called it? The rock grinder catalog?
Mining catalog.
Yes, the mining catalog.
So all of the mining catalog vehicles, specifically the rock grinders and the Goliath trucks, have an ability that essentially allows them to ignore wounds on a 6+.
It's good.
Now, the Ridge Runners don't have this, but they instead have 2 other abilities. They have Scout Vehicle, which allows them to do essentially a free movement at the beginning of the game if you don't ambush them, which everything in Cult has Cult ambush. So, placing the blips and not knowing where anything is for your opponent, and then...
Always fun.
Super fun. But they also get access to one of 3 different types of war gear. They can choose one of 3 different types of war gear. Now, one is a flare launcher, which essentially gives, you can give a bike unit a -1 to hit, and then that will give them the ignore wounds on a 6+.
Right.
But they don't get that automatically. So, that's one of the war gear choices that you'd have to take. So we're not taking that one. Instead, we're taking the spotter, which is the cheapest version, but also the best for the weapons configuration that we have, which is it extends 6 inches to the range of all weapons that it's equipped with.
Oh, that's nice.
So that heavy mining laser on them is now 42.
It's like a little extra battery pack in there, just getting that extra juice.
It's a guy with binoculars.
Now I can see.
Yeah. And then it also, so it makes not only the heavy mining laser, but also the heavy stubbers a 42-inch range, which is
That's
good,
really good.
especially on a vehicle that can move 14 inches. So it's like a very good edge vehicle, like taking table quarters or holding the back line and stuff.
Or
Now,
just threatening things like late in a game when you only have like a couple things left. They can still take out some units downfield.
yeah, and because they have a very strong anti-vehicle weapon, and it's a 42-inch range, they can go after things like knights and stuff. That's still useful. And then so that's our fast attack. Our heavy support is the 3 rock grinders that we mentioned, because they are heavy support.
Vroom! Grind those rocks.
And they're
again just a tool just out there. They're like, oh, we'll just use these.
Well, we got to go down this tunnel. And there's a lot of rocks in the way. Bill, strap the big thing covered in saw blades to the front of the truck. We're just driving straight through.
I don't think that's how these were intended to be used.
We're doing it.
All right. Well, you are the boss.
So the Goliath rock grinders have heavy mining lasers, just like the Achilles Ridge Runners, but only 36-inch range because they don't have spotters. They have the drill dozer blade.
Dozer.
And then a heavy stubber, because all the vehicles come with some form of heavy stubber on it. And then they of course, as well have a cache of demolition charges.
So many demo charges.
Now,
it's like these guys just literally got off work and were like, you know what? What if we just took over this planet instead?
How about an uprising?
Instead of going to Bill's Barbecue, it's like, let's do it.
Now, the rock grinder, what's great about it is, even though it is a depreciating vehicle, and what I mean by that is a vehicle that does degrade, even though it's only a 10-wound vehicle, so it's right at that cusp, its weapon skill does not.
Ooh.
And that's important because the drill dozer blade is +3 strength, AP -2, and D3 damage, and when you use it, you get D3 additional attacks. And I'll remind you that when it's at max capacity, it has 6 attacks base.
Wow.
So 7 to 9 attacks, hitting on 4+, 3 if you're near the Primus, and wounding almost anything in the game on 3 or better.
It's really good.
With AP -2 and D3 damage. And it's a vehicle. It's a transport vehicle.
Yeah, they're not meant... I mean, there are vehicles that are meant to be dangerous in close combat, but these transport vehicles are never usually that threatening.
No. And, I mean, at toughness 7 and only a 4+ save, you're like, but it's not that tough. But it still has a 6-up invul. It still has a 6-up essential feel no pain that ignores damage. And then it's also got 5 acolytes and a character inside that can also do lots of damage.
Yeah.
So then we also have 3 elites, because we have to have 3 elites because it's a brigade.
Sure.
And the 3 elites are, to nobody's surprise, 1 Sanctus, which is their assassin with a sniper rifle.
Yep.
One Kellermorph, which is the Liberator auto stub guy.
Mr. Yeehaw.
Yeehaw Pistols guy. And a Nexus, which will just sit in your back and basically regenerate UCP every turn.
Yeah, it's a pretty good just basic include in an army. What a nice, just spend some points, put a guy in there, and you don't have to get a Warlord trait or something. That I don't even know if Genestealer Cult have a Warlord trait that let them farm.
Not a regen Warlord trait one. They have the Four-Armed Emperor Cult Creed Warlord trait is they get a D3 additional. But
I guess you don't need it when you can just put a guy in the backfield sitting on an objective don't worry, guys, I'm planning over here, just getting more CP for you.
Yeah, so how he works is that when you use a stratagem on a 6, you get a CP back. When your opponent uses a stratagem on a 6, you get a CP back. If there's a friendly Primus on your side in the game on the board, then when you spend a stratagem, it's a 5+ instead of a 6.
What?
And then if you also have a friendly Clamavis on the board, then when your opponent uses one, it's on a 5+ instead of a 6.
That is incredibly good.
Now, we don't have the Clamavis in here because we don't need it for the extra charges.
Even if it was just when you spend a stratagem and on a 6, you get one, even when your opponent does it, just because you can do it for both, there are very rare Warlord traits out there that let you do that type of CP farming, but the fact that both can be at 5+ is amazing.
Well, and the added bonus on top is that he's just the first thing you deploy every game, basically, because then all of your deployment stratagems that you do, you can potentially regenerate.
Of course.
So,
wow.
I mean, awesome. Okay, so let me explain why the cache of demolition charges is important to have. It's a very specific reason, which is there's a 1-point stratagem that Genestealer Cult has.
So cheap.
That if they have a cache of demolition charges on board of a vehicle, it auto-explodes when it dies.
What?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you were referring to, maybe we'll get to another stratagem later. I was thinking of a different demo charge stratagem. I was like, I didn't know those worked on vehicles.
Oh, we're getting to that.
Okay.
We're going to get to that.
Soon. But that is crazy. So basically some guy does the classic old data slate move where he lights a match and just throws it in the vehicle and it just blows up everything.
Yep. So you use these vehicles with reckless abandon, especially the rock grinders. You just ram them into the opponent, hope that he kills them, and then just set them ablaze.
Well, as you know, all of these vehicles come equipped with a special hose of gasoline that when you jump out of a vehicle, you spray it in a really nice line, and then everybody comes up and puts their guns on you, and you're like, oh yeah, you got me, did you? Well, let me just light this cigarette for a second. Oops, I dropped the lighter on the ground. Boom.
Yep, basically.
It's the classic Genestealer move.
And the Goliath Rock Grinders, I'll remind everyone, is a 6-inch range explosion with D3 mortal wounds, so that can hit a wide area.
Yeah, that's a pretty big blast radius.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a demo charge, so that's what it's supposed to do.
Jay, get it right. It's a cache of demolition charges.
It's just many. It's not just a single one. This is a shit ton of them.
That entire drawer is just filled with demolition charges.
Hey, Bill, did you clear out that whole drawer before we were about to throw that lighter in there? No? Good.
Right next to the gas tank.
Oh my god.
So that is it for the brigade detachment. That's everything. So that's all the Rusted Claw.
It's a lot of vehicles.
6 transports, 3 of the Ridge Runners, and then everything infantry in the detachment is in a vehicle.
I like it.
Which is great. Then our second detachment is a Rusted Claw. I should take it back. Only one thing is outside of the vehicles, and that's the guy on the bike with the sniper rifle.
You know, someone was going to call you out on it. That person was going to be me. But you have dodged a bullet this day, sir.
So then in our other detachment, we have a Rusted Claw Outrider. And this maybe have his stratagem combo that you were referring to in a second.
Yes, it's this one for sure.
So we'll get to that. It's lots of fun.
Tell us what's going on with the Rusted Claw. Like, what's their backstory? What's their deal?
So they're like nomads. They live on a very hostile planet, and they specifically focus on vehicles and bikes. They have lots of them, and they keep on the move as much as they can, which is kind of the theme of this army.
I'm noticing a trend for sure.
A little bit of trend. So their cult creed is that any weapon that has an AP of -1 is treated as AP 0.
When they're getting shot.
Ooh. So
it's kind of like the All Is Dust or whatever it's called for Rubric Marines.
Also, I believe it's Metallica for the Adeptus Mechanicus has a very similar one.
The ancient band Metallica that came back and was resurrected at least 3 times in history.
Of course.
They're part of this as well?
They're a full Forge World now.
My God.
It's just Metallica all the time.
That's a very metal Forge World, as Forge Worlds intend to be.
But then the other ability that it gives, which is very important for these guys, well, specifically because I gave them a certain unit, is that they can move and fire heavy weapons without penalty as long as they're bikers. So this Jackal, specifically, who leads this band, so it's a second Jackal Alphus that we've taken, is he can move and fire his sniper rifle without penalty.
Well, then, that's...
So he's figured it out,
He's
Jay.
got it right. He's got some stabilizers in there. He's like, oh, I see. If I just stop when I shoot, I'm more accurate. Well, look at this. Look at me, solving problems and leading troops. I've got everything figured out.
He's got it.
Yeah.
So as I said, this is an Outrider, so that's the fast attack detachment, and it's being led by a Jackal Alphus with the Jackal sniper rifle, as the same as our other detachment. But then we have 3 specific fast attacks. They're all the same thing because they're all great.
Ooh.
And that's 3 units of Talon Jackals, and that is the biker guys. We have 1 wolf quad in each, which is
wolf quad. You
wolf
say?
quad. Yes,
4 wolves. My God.
quad of wolves.
Now I'm just imagining just 4 wolves like tethered in one spot, just trying to run in all different directions.
I was gonna say, I just imagine 4 wolves with a palanquin balanced between them, and the wolves just run around in unison.
I like it. I look. Say no more. I assume that's exactly what this is.
It is not.
Oh, darn.
So an Talon, a Jackal Wolf quad is a 4-wheeler essentially.
Jackal Wolf Quad. Just two of those animal names back to back.
It's an Talon Wolf quad, not a Jackal Wolf quad.
This has got so much ferocity. It's 2 animals, I swear.
The Talon Wolf quad.
Okay.
Is a 4-wheeler, and the difference is it has so each Talon Jackal has 2 wounds each. The Talon Wolf quad has 4 wounds, and it has the capability to carry a heavy weapon on the back. It's got like a little platform on the back of the 4-wheeler.
Oh, that's nice.
So each of the
because as we all know, when you're working in the yard and you're mining, why stand there and meticulously aim your mining laser to cut accurately when you can just drive around and shoot that at anything?
Yeah, accurately too.
I question some of these construction sites and the safety regulations they've got going on over there. They've just got boatloads of demo caches, putting mining lasers on the back of...
Just think of it like this, Jay. Think of it like this. Mm-hmm. Think it's a planet that there are always earthquakes. And you have to mine
your way out of it.
But you gotta mine on the move because you can't stay in one place for too long or you might get swallowed up.
Look at this kid, first day on the job, taking his time with his mining. Kid, you gotta mine on the move, man.
Where's your bike? Or at least your wolf quad. You gotta be riding while you're mining. That's what you gotta do.
That's what we say. Riding while you're mining.
Riding and mining. That's our mantra.
My goodness.
Each unit has 6 Talon Jackals, which is the name of the unit. So it's 5 Jackals and 1 wolf quad in each unit. The wolf quad has a mining laser, sensing a theme here. So many mining lasers in this list.
So many.
And then each of the other Talon Jackals has access to 2 weapons from the Jackal war gear section. Now, I've kept them as cheap as I could, but one thing in particular...
Can I guess? Is it demo charges?
No, of course not. They each have 5 shotguns, and then of course they have 5 demo charges.
I see.
And that's because Genestealer Cult has a stratagem very much like a lot of other armies do, which is you can select a unit, and then every guy in the unit can throw a grenade of some type. Now, specifically with this stratagem is that you can only throw up to 5 demo charges.
I think
for good reason.
With how powerful they are, I think that was a good restriction. There's armies like Death Guard where you hear a lot of that, where they can all throw those blight grenades.
Blight grenades, yeah.
And just I think you can have a 20-man unit just throw 20 blight grenades.
It's a lot.
Which is a lot of them.
Every 6 is a mortal wound or something.
I think this was a good call though for only 5 at a max.
5d6 strength 8 AP -2 d3 damage hits.
Yeah.
So these guys have not only that stratagem, but then there's another stratagem that Genestealer Cult has that's a 2-point stratagem that allows them to deploy a unit from underground, because that's your 2 choices, is either Cult Ambush, which is the blips, or underground, which is reserved just for bikes and infantry. And if you come from underground, you normally appear 9 inches away from the enemy like any other reinforcement.
And there's no way to get around that ever.
Except for the 2 CP stratagem that allows you to deploy within 3 inches. Which, conveniently enough, demo charges have a 6-inch range, as do things like hand flamers.
I see what you did there.
Now, let's get into the Creed-specific stratagems that the two of them have.
Ooh.
Now, Bladed Cog, as I had mentioned previously when previewing my army, has the funness of not liking AdMech, but their stratagem is 1 point, and against anything that's non-Imperium, on a 6+, it's a combat stratagem, you select a Bladed Cog unit, and every 6 to hit generates an additional attack.
Kind of like a Death to the False Emperor.
Yeah, essentially. And this can apply not only to good things like your Acolytes, but it can even apply to things like, I don't know, Goliath Rock Grinders, because who doesn't want to do that? And it's only 1 CP. Now, against anything that's Imperial, it's every 5 or 6.
Ooh, so a better Death to the False Emperor.
And then against AdMech, it's every 4, 5, or 6.
Death to the Robot Bastards, basically.
Yeah, so that...
4+, wow.
So that can get out of hand really quick, and look at that. Conveniently enough, if you're against AdMech and you have Goliath Rock Grinders, they hit on a 4, and then look at that. Every hit generates an additional attack.
That's so silly. Wait a second. With the Primus, does he give a +1 to hit?
It's unmodified.
Ah, there we go.
Unmodified.
That's important.
That's the kicker.
I thought it was just on a 4+. It's an extra attack,
No,
which
it
would
would-
be nuts.
No, it would be silly. It is unmodified.
Look, it's still pretty rough.
I mean, it still can get out of hand very quickly. There's a reason why I use this in my army, because when you have things like 8 rock saws, it can get downright silly.
Agreed.
Now, Rusted Claw has a stratagem that Jay may have alluded to previously. Has something to do with demolition charges and things that they do. Now, remember, I had mentioned previously the ability of the Jackal Alphus is units within 6 inches or biker units within 12 inches. He names a target. All of those units get +1 to hit. These bikers can move in, and they ignore moving and firing heavy weapons, so they're already hitting on 4s. But then you have the Alphas come in, and the Alphas is from 12 inches away is now making them hit on 3s. Well, Rusted Claw has a 1-point stratagem, 1 point, 1 CP, called Drive-By Demolitions. Use this stratagem before a Rusted Claw biker unit from your army shoots in the shooting phase. Until the end of the phase, add 1 to hit and wound rolls made for attacks with that unit's grenade weapons. So the added caveat with this is that you get to move after resolving all your shooting attacks. Now, you can't do this if you do a come from underground, because the overarching rule of the game is that you cannot move at any time if you came in from reinforcements.
Indeed.
So they cannot do that. They would have to do that if they start on the board, which they could do. I mean, they have a 14-inch move.
14-inch move, they can hide. They're not that big.
Also, they have a -1 to hit native.
Ooh, that's nice.
All
I completely
bikes have
forgot
that.
about that.
Yeah, all bikes have a -1
They're
to
really
hit native.
crafty on those trick bikes.
Yeah, so, I mean, hitting on 2 pluses with 5d6 demolition charges and wounding on +1 against anything, that means they're wounding knights on 3s.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's,
with their 14-inch move, you could basically come out of hiding, bomb, hit on 2s, wound on potentially 2s with almost everything but knights, and then wound them on 3s, and then just scuttle right back into cover again.
Yep.
That's nuts.
And there's 3 units of these guys. Let's not forget, they also all have shotguns, so then once the demolition charges are gone, they still have shotguns, which at half range are bolter damage, 2-shot bolters, and a mini las cannon on the back that can move and fire without penalty.
Oh, that's right. Our little Talon Wolf quad.
Yeah, a Talon Wolf quad with his mining laser on the back, and he moves and fires without penalty. So I mean,
is he part of the unit?
He's part of the unit.
Oh.
So for every 4 guys, you can take 1 a Talon Wolf
Take a little
quad.
wolf buddy.
Yeah.
That's fun.
So that we have 3 units of those, and that basically rounds out the list of basically an in-your-face, everything explodes in this list.
Oh my God.
I mean, 6 vehicles with demo charges, 3 units of Acolytes with a demo charge per unit, and then 3 units of bikes with 5
You
demos.
can just blow up your vehicles when you want. You come in and you just so many explosions happening.
And a grand total of 6 heavy mining lasers and 6 regular mining lasers.
Jeez. It's like so many lasers, so many explosions. It's like a stunt show spectacular all rolled into one. Just like lasers firing everywhere. People are doing road bike tricks while things are blowing up.
You know, that comes into its name, Jay.
Oh, really? What's its name?
The Road Show.
The Road Show! That's awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the list. And I mean, honestly, if I could do a variant fun list and I could afford to buy all these models.
It's a lot of models. Very big models, too.
Yeah, then this would be so much fun. It's so fast. I mean, the slowest moving thing is 10 inches, which is still very fast and has so much anti-tank. I mean,
God, so many mining lasers.
That's 6 D3 las cannons and then 6 regular las cannons.
That's right, because a lot of them are D3.
6 of them are D3.
Wow.
And then 3 quad autocannons. I mean, it's just like, man, this is punish vehicles real hard. And then all of the demo charges on top of that.
This sounds like a really fun list. I'd love to see somebody try this out. I mean, because even like you said, like even the transports, like can threat in close combat, like they're durable. They got autocannons. Like there's a lot of fun, like spread threats throughout this list.
Yep.
Well, I really like this list. Roadshow, guys in vehicles, dirt bikes flipping off of mountains as things explode in the background. Like, it sounds really fun, and I actually think it would do pretty well.
I think it would. Honestly, if you went against an army that's an elite army, whether it's a knight list or like things like custodes or anything that's low model count and high wound models.
Like, how many las cannon shots do you have?
And demo charges? What?
What? Ah, too many lasers and bombs! It sounds awesome to me. I really like this list, and hopefully we might see it someday. Who knows? But anyways, guys, that was episode 58 of Roll to Seize. Tune in next month for our next episode. If you'd like to hear a little more from Andrew and I, we're also sometimes on a podcast called Wrath and Story. That's if you like the Warhammer 40k universe, and if you like us, I don't know why you would, but if you did, you could. I don't know why you listened to this entire episode. You are just masochistic, I guess.
Crazy person.
But if you'd like to hear more from us and more from the Warhammer 40k universe, check it out. It's a lot of fun. We also do another show called Friday Night Quest, which is really enjoyable as well if you enjoy the old D&D.
Set in the D&D campaign system, yeah.
Yeah, it's very fun. And of course, if you guys enjoy the show and you want to support us and get some bonus content, we do have a Patreon now at patreon.com/roll-to-seize.
Yes, we appreciate any support you can give.
It would really help. And of course, always, if you can't help us monetarily, we really appreciate ratings and reviews on iTunes. It helps new people find the show, and we love reading them. They're very nice.
Yes,
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you guys next month. Goodbye.
Goodbye.